So just went through all of these tools. We will be using them, as I said. So if you are set up with your microphone, you must unclick talk once you're finished, or we'll hear everything. And since most of you are at schools, we'll hear the announcements, we'll hear the kids, we'll hear it all. And if you're calling in, please mute your phone until we do the share out, or else, again, we will hear everything. And then when we move into breakout rooms for small group discussions, you can take notes on your whiteboard using the tools on the left side of your screen. But breakout rooms are not recorded, so during that time, you can feel free to be even more honest than you would normally be because there is no recording. The general session that we will be having together is recorded. So if you have that capability of talking on your microphone, go ahead and raise your hand and share out. We'd like for you to share your name, your school, your county, and your content area. Yes, Marshall, we want you to be honest in the breakout room. And then please explain your FAME group, how many participants, the composition by grade, content, etc. So if you do not have a microphone or you've not called in, please go ahead and type your response in the chat. If you can, please raise your hand and go ahead and share. I will call on names and share that way. Okay, let's see where the first hand is. All right, Kim, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead, Kim.
Okay, I'm Kim Reynolds. I'm the curriculum coordinator for the Hannah Moore School, and we are a non-public secondary program. And all of our teachers are involved with FAME, and that would be 17 teachers from all curricular areas. And it's been a very interesting experience in having all 17 teachers involved.
Great. Marshall, you want to go next?
Sure. My name is Marshall Kawecki. I'm at Northern High School in Calvert County. I am the Social Studies Core Lead. And our FAME group has 10 participants, and they come from all different content areas and all different levels of experience and expertise. So it's a very diverse group, that's for sure.
Great. I think Lisa's next.
Hi, I'm Lisa Loudenslager. I am from Lockerman Middle in Caroline County. I teach 8th grade language arts. We have 19 members, including our facilitators, about 8 language arts, 4 math, 2 science, 3 special ed, 1 ELL. So that's our makeup.
Great. Carly and Jill?
Hi, my name is Carly Pumphrey, and I'm Jill Fowler, and we're both lead teachers at Fountaindale Elementary School in Hagerstown, which is in Washington County, and we are both facilitators of our FAME group, and we have 1 principal in our group and 14 teachers, so there's a total of 17 of us.
Great. Let's see, I think Lisa. Irene, go ahead, Irene. Oh no, Irene, we are not able to hear you. If you called in, can you make sure that you, oh, there we go. Try it again, Irene. Make sure that you press talk. Oh, it looks like she's having a bit of trouble. Go ahead and type in. If anybody else has capability of actually speaking, you can go ahead and do so now. If not, go ahead and tell us in the chat box your composition, your group. And I believe someone called, and I think that must be Kim that called in as well. And my name is Melissa Finkel. I'm sure you're all familiar with my name via email at very least. And I am the coordinator for FAME. And I am happy to be here sharing with you. I'm not sure if any of our other partners who are on would like to share. I know Coach Nancy's joining us, which is really exciting. Irene, I'm a co-facilitator of a group of 8 teachers at a middle school in Montgomery County. I was with them yesterday. They're a great group.
This is Nancy Green.
Oh,
I'll
I
say
hear
hello
someone.
while waiting for folks. I know. So I'm very glad to be on the call today. Very interested in hearing what's going on in the world of facilitating the FAME project and the community practice. If you have questions that would be appropriate for me, please feel free to direct them my way. Thanks.
Great. Thank you, Nancy. Well, I realize that we are starting with a small group. I know more are joining us, but you know, it is a school day and it's probably an insane one today. So we're going to go ahead and move forward. We're going to revisit this a little bit at the end, so it's okay that we can't get everyone's input right now. I'm Katie. Thank you. Katie Lang, Washington County lead teacher. We have 12 participants pre-K through 5. Oh, that's great. And I see Westside just joined us. So we'd like to go ahead and share any special successes or great takeaways from either the first 2 modules or just the process overall. This can include process, content, procedure, really anything that you would like to share out. So if you are able to share verbally, go ahead and raise your hand. If you are not, please go ahead and type in the chat any really special takeaways or successes from the first 2 modules. I find it hard to believe we have this shy of a group. Okay. Go ahead, Carly and Jill.
We've been really excited to actually see some implementation in the classroom. Our teachers are excited to share that the success criteria in particular has been really helpful to students. They know what the expectations are of learning and how they'll demonstrate that learning, and it has really improved instruction overall.
Great. That's great to hear. Lisa, go ahead.
We've had a lot of success with just running our COPs. Just the 2 times that we've had on both the feedback, which I was pretty pleased and surprised that both times the feedback was, we want them to be longer, they're not long enough, we need more time to talk. So I just found that exciting feedback to get from teachers. Usually it's, oh my gosh, another PD. So that was encouraging.
That's great. I see Katie typing. Another hand raised. Irene, can you go ahead and share?
All right, can you guys hear me?
Yeah, there she is.
All right, I'm on my phone now. Okay, so what I found great was we had our COP yesterday, and today we're going MYP, so we're an International Baccalaureate candidate, and our coordinator is a part of our COP, and she came up to me today, and she said a couple of the people who participated yesterday had made some of those connections with how like formative assessment planning was really a part of like that bigger picture, and they really wanted to sit down with her and start doing some intentional planning for upcoming units. And that was like the focus of our Module 2 day yesterday, and like how they can incorporate feedback, and just they were really looking forward to like their March unit, which is what we talked about yesterday. So I thought that that was like a good success out of what we did yesterday.
That's great, and they're making those connections. And I'm definitely going to be following up on looking at some of those middle years, the middle years program planner, the MYP planner that you were talking about. Marshall, you want to go ahead and tell us a little bit about some of the successes?
Sure. We actually met today for our COP, and we're such a diverse group, we're trying to look for that common thread, and our group has really been looking at the connection of assessments along with the curriculum and instruction. And, so it was pretty neat how they're seeing that there's definitely gaps between them and how they're going to be able to use formative assessment to try to fill in those gaps. So it's a very focused formative assessment with purpose, and it it just kind of led in beautifully to the whole idea of the learning goals, success criteria, the learning progressions. So the discussion today was great, and they walked away with very tangible things to implement for our next steps.
That's great. Okay, let's look down. Westside Elementary School, Jill Wire, Molly Stewart, and Kathy Schkowski here. That's awesome. One of our successes is that our staff is starting to see how all of this is coming together, which seems to be that theme across the board, that people are starting to see how all these things connect, you know, and how these processes actually work together. Kim, would you like to share? I know you're on the phone as well.
I'm actually talking on my computer.
Oh, well, that's exciting. Go ahead.
Yay, technology finally hit us. What I have to say, when I've done observations of teachers in the classroom, I am seeing them starting to use more formative assessment in how they're interacting with the kids on a regular basis. But yesterday we had our COPS, and we had a few situations where we have some more questions and we need a little bit more clarification. So it kind of overrode the successes.
There will be no table tennis today. There's no table tennis
Oh,
today.
there's an announcement.
Thank you.
So if that's your announcements, could you mute the mic a little bit until they're over? Thank you. Katie said we've been able to make connections to UPD. Yep, we had a lot of those connections yesterday. And what we've been studying the last year, it's sinking in, and teachers are making realizations that this is essential. Great. All right. So if there's nothing else that people would want to contribute overall to this discussion, we can move on to the next one, which is those areas for growth. So we're going to take a little bit of time, especially since we have Coach Nancy here. Sorry, we might put you on the spot a bit. If someone could mute their mic right now or mute their phone, that would be great, because I'm hearing feedback. Thanks. There's nothing worse than hearing your own voice. Okay, so still hearing it. So some of those things that we might need to look at. So how did you deal with specific situations? So Kim, if you want to talk a little bit more about your specific situation or questions yesterday. What are areas for improvement in the way that the materials are presented? We're actually looking at that as feedback. And then what would help support next year's group of facilitators? Because what I've heard, actually I've visited a COP every single day this week pretty much, and last week, between the past 2 weeks I've been to quite a few. And a lot of the feedback has been that current participants would really love the opportunity to become facilitators next year. And so if you were giving advice to them, what would some of that advice be? So I don't know, Kim, if you want to start, since you had just been talking about some issues that were there, that would be great.
Well, yesterday, we're a special education school, and we understand the value of the formative assessments. And you know, when we were going through Module 2, I think we all understood the practice of success criteria and learning progressions. But we have students who have a variety of abilities in one classroom. So you can have a student who's reading on the first grade level in the same room with a student who is in, you know, post-high school. So we're finding that to create a success criteria, it really needs to be differentiated, which is a little bit more complicated and involved, as well as the learning progressions. What is learning for one student may not be the same learning for another. So that's where we're having a lot of questions coming up from teachers, and that was what I was, you know, they had a valuable point yesterday, because again, we have to differentiate. So does that mean we have to have 5 or 6 different success criteria and learning progressions because our students are on those different levels in one room? I would love to hear some advice here.
Anybody like to give some input or insight into what they've done in their schools? No. Nancy, would you like to chime in?
I can. I'd love to hear from others and how they're experiencing this. And I think in a special ed school and in a non-special ed school, you're going to see something similar or consistent. So the basic frame of the learning progression is that it will capture the level from 1 to 4 of all the students in your class. And really, if there needs to be some work moving down for students who have not yet mastered, the strategy that we've been most likely to use for that, and there are a couple of different strategies that you can use, but the most likely one is to look at the learning progression for the same standard at a lower grade level, and to consider that there might be students who are functioning at several grade levels below what you're looking at in your learning progression that would require a different way of looking at something. Now, that's not typically the case with special ed students. It's typically the case that you see students in the 1 and 2 range who are having more trouble or more difficulty, and that does not, I'm not overstating that you would see special ed students there, but students who have particular learning difficulties, you might be more likely to see at the 1 and 2 range and not necessarily lower than that. So one idea, the first idea is how long is the learning progression? Does it really capture all the students in the class? If it doesn't, are there things to do with the learning progression itself to ensure it does, or would you go down a grade level and look at sort of what are some foundational skills even below that, what's in your grade level learning progression? So that's one way of thinking about it. With the success criteria question, I think there's a couple of ways that we've seen this done effectively. One is to have special education teachers work with groups of students who have similar starting points based on the pre-assessments that you have on a particular unit or area of study, and then work with those students to develop success criteria based on the learning progression that they're using. So those success criteria can sometimes look a little bit different. And having special ed teachers work with students on that helps that process.
Thank you, Nancy. Irene, did you want to share? Irene is also in special education. There's a lot of discussion about that yesterday, actually.
Yeah, I'd like to share. I was listening to the whole dialogue. We have announcements going on, so I apologize. Can you guys hear me?
That's fine, yeah.
Okay, all right, yeah. I was totally thinking about the discussion just now. We are an IB school candidate, but we have anywhere from LFI to the Center for the Highly Gifted in our school and a GTLD program. So we have a little bit of each little snippet in our community of practice. So there was a lot of discourse around this yesterday. And what we had talked about was when we're developing our learning progressions and our success criteria, and how do we capture the kids at like the 1 and 2 level, and how do we help them to break down the success criterion in a way that the kids can have like the prerequisite skills to like build them up and shape them toward where we want them, but then also giving them appropriate feedback. So balancing the feedback, but then also maybe looking at those lower level prerequisite skills, but then balancing the rigor. Because with the GTLD kids, we talked about like universal design learning, and then other ways, because it might not necessarily be a lower grade level, but maybe an access kind of deal. So that's what we were looking at and talking about yesterday, because there is a lot of fine-tuning there. I think that goes in when you're writing and then looking at the common misconceptions and then working with the unit planners. And we also talked about utilizing like our special ed staff, our ESOL staff, our staff development teacher, and some of the other experts in the building who have already like scaffolded those tasks down, teased them out, so not working harder, but maybe consulting other people in the building to help kind of take a look at those through a different lens.
This is Nancy, and I just want to echo how important that is to use the other experts. And I had mentioned sort of going down a grade level or using your special education teachers, but I think you've mentioned other ways that you could have the work being done, but not necessarily rely on the same classroom
instructors to have to do it, and I think that's how that would happen.
Yeah, so that's what we talked about. We also had a bunch of different content areas. So we had foreign language, and I even teach adaptive PE for the Learning for Independence. So we've done a lot of cross-curricular and articulation conversations yesterday around this. So it is something we're definitely struggling with as a school, and then also trying to fuse all the different curricular standards with Common Core, just being in 6th grade right now, and just everything we're trying to balance as a building.
Great. Thank you, Erin. Is there anything else that you'd like to share of areas for growth with your group, or any questions you might have?
I think that we are just, you know, I think the group is, everybody's in different places with their curriculum guides, so it's like flipping over from that standards-based learning over to that conceptual-based learning, depending on where their units are. So I think some of the people in the cohort are, or in the community of practice, are still stuck on what does the formative test say versus that thought process around formative assessment, and then doing coverage versus concept. So I think some people are still struggling a little bit on that, but I think yesterday was very helpful in shifting that mindset over.
Great, thanks. And Carly and Jill, you want to share next? I just want to read out loud what Marshall wrote, even though he has a microphone. Our group is commenting that the modules provide so much information, many templates that they question if they're understanding the modules correctly or creating items such as learning goals and success criteria the right way. If you are, how often are your COPs modifying FAME to fit your group's needs, and how, if you are, you doing it? I think that's a great point, and Carly and Jill, if you would want to start with that if it applies, because that was actually a conversation yesterday with Irene's group and a few other groups that, you know, it's really important that if you have language that your district uses that has the same meaning, and it is important that you do acknowledge that because it is slow to change what the district has, and our work should be, you know, really should be informing them, but it's not going to be immediate that they change that language. So Carly and Jill, you want to go ahead and talk?
That actually really goes along well with the same kind of struggle that we're having as well, because our teachers are really getting hung up on the actual template itself and knowing what to put where and what that should look like. Because some of the language is similar to things we've already done, but it looks a little different. So we're really working hard on trying to kind of hammer all of that out as well. But what we have found is working for our teachers is to make sure that it's more about the process and not as much about the template. So really trying to make sure that even if it's not necessarily in the right place at the template, that the intentions are the same for the formative assessment process.
Great, thanks. Do you guys have any other questions you'd like to ask or anything else to share before I pass it over to Lisa?
Melissa, could I ask a question?
Sure.
One of the things that my teachers noted when we were watching the video yesterday, it was the secondary video, and it was wonderful. I've taught regular ed. I could really relate to it. Unfortunately, for special ed classes like ours, but that would be helpful to have special ed videos where we can see kids who have learning differences trying to develop the success criteria, etc., like they were in the videos that we saw yesterday.
Okay, and did you, I mean, I guess even the lower second, or the, I think it's about 5th or 6th grade one is still a bit higher level as well. That is a great point, and I am recording that. Lisa, did you want to share out?
Yeah.
Talk about some of your needs?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I just wanted to echo both some things Marshall said and Carly and Jill. we have a lot of, in our last COP also, a lot of like, I'm trying this stuff and I'm trying to share the learning targets and success criteria. I'm not sure I'm sharing them right. I'm not sure I'm writing them right. We had a lot of discussion about the nuance between an objective or a know and show as the traditional language that we've used in my building versus a learning target and success criteria. And so they're trying to, we are all trying to figure that all out. And just like, again, like in the videos when they watch those examples and they're kind of marveling at the amount of time that a teacher takes to share or co-create the success criteria, and they were sort of questioning, like, how often does one do that? Is that a daily thing? Is that at the beginning of a larger project, or just exactly where that occurred and how that occurs and how often? And so that's kind of the conversations that we were having this COP. And then we have a couple of science teachers, and so another question that came up was about in science, if you've got like a more inquiry-based lesson where you don't want to sort of reveal everything at the beginning, and you want kids to sort of come to a discovery of whatever the concept is, then how do you tweak that process for that type of a lesson? So those are kind of some of the topics that we were discussing at the COP that kind of relate to what everybody else is talking about.
So how do you share success criteria without revealing what they will discover, essentially?
Exactly.
Is that what you're okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Marshall, I saw that you raised your hand.
Of course I raised my hand.
Very polite.
I like to echo with the idea of special ed as well, that there needs to be a greater spectrum of what we're at least seeing, because you do kind of get in this mindset of when you're reading and watching, and you're always looking at that same level of kid. They're all uniformed and doing exactly what they're supposed to do as well. So some of the teachers, and I brought up the point within my COP, they're so different in their disciplines, and the language is so different for each of our curricula, that sometimes the time we're using the COP is just calming down and getting to the commonality of what we want to achieve. So, how would this help for next year? I'm not quite sure, but I would say, they're looking at this as a course that they're taking. They're looking at it as the State Department sending it down, so there's some concerns. They want to make sure they do it right. And, when I talk to you, or I talk to, Carly or Jill or Lisa, and I'm comfortable because we've at least hashed it out and had conversations about it. For some of these people, the COP might be one of the first times, at least in our school, that we see each other because we're such a big school. How could we do it where, even if it's a message coming from the coordinators to say, hey, our goal in this is to plant a seed, or our goal is to take baby steps, our goal is to start this thing spreading, not to master this by module 2. So if there's a way to kind of get that through, I think our COPs become more rich because they're coming in saying, yeah, I've taken baby steps and here's what I did, instead of worrying about the template or worrying about, did I do the homework right and did I click the right button for my module.
They need to understand that they're still growing and learning, right? As we expect our students to know.
No, I agree with that, but to get that mindset going, it would cut through a lot of the stuff that we wouldn't have to be discussing to really get into the rich conversations. We did today, it got a lot better, but it's, we only have 5 modules and limited opportunities to be applying this in terms of a whole group. It'd be kind of neat that if there's a way during the process that they're not just hearing it from their facilitator, but overall, hey, we're just encouraged that you guys are doing this. We're excited for you. It can go a long way sometimes to let them know you're doing great. It sounds ridiculous, but it does go a long way.
Okay. That's great. Anybody else like to share out some of their concerns or questions for others, either in the chat room or verbally? I saw Irene. There you go. Go ahead, Irene.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, I want to agree with Marshall just on the community of practice participants. I think as yesterday went on, especially with having you there, Melissa, and then them just being reassured that, you know, we're taking this where people are in their process and their learning, they became more comfortable, and the discourse got better with everybody because it wasn't just about clicking the button or watching the video on the computer. It was where they were at in their development and you know, where we're at as a school, because I don't think it's being viewed today as just another thing that we're doing as a school, especially being in Montgomery County, you know, with all these initiatives that get thrown our way. I think people are starting to value it more just because of how it's being presented. And I was trying to reassure everybody, you know, as we were reassured this summer when we took it on, that this isn't just going to be another thing. This is great teaching, you know, so we should be doing this anyway. But now I think the participants are starting to believe it. So it was really good to have your presence there, but also to have that message reinforced. Even though it seems like a small thing, like Marshall said, it is a big thing when people are already stressed out with their processes and all the planning we have to do.
Yeah, Marshall, did you want to contribute? Go ahead.
Just exactly, Irene. I actually had one of the guys in my COP days say that, because, you know, we always have something new dealt to us, and what is Spain's goal? What's the next step for them? Which invited a great conversation again, and it says it's just going to be a flash in the pan, and we're doing it this year. And I was able to give them a very qualified answer to that, saying, no, the goal is that we're going to start this, and we're the ones who are going to take this out throughout the building. So it's really kind of cool to give them that charge, and they took it to heart. Because they do hear, hey, not that it's bad, but we have UDL, we have productive group work, we have SLOs, we've got so many things that it is daunting that this is something simplistic that they're able to put into play tomorrow or next week, and they're able to. Today was just a great day for that. But when that guy brought that comment up, I thought, when you mentioned that, I was like, he asked that question flat out. Is this just a flash in the pan? And we could show that absolutely not, because once we get this thing going, you can really see its value.
That's something that's great. One way we've attempted to share learning across our various groups and throughout the school is by creating a display chart for each attribute. When teachers share or see artifacts, we add them to the chart. This shows everyone a variety of ways to apply the learning and develop a deeper understanding of the attributes. It's great. So in the interest of time, we're going to move forward, and we're going to go into our breakout rooms. And we will sort of revisit all this later. Breakout room 1 is for elementary school participants. Breakout room 2 is for middle school participants, and breakout room 3 is for high school. You can move yourself to the breakout rooms by clicking on the top. It says next to the check mark, you click on it and it says main room, and you can decide which room you want to go to. When you move yourself to those rooms, if you have the ability to talk, make sure that you press talk again, because it will mute your microphone. So go ahead and move yourself to the correct room, and if it's not working for you, I will move you. Okay, so we should all be back in the main room now. I'm going to have just a few people. I'm going to have Lisa, Jill, Carly, and Marshall just share out with the bigger group just a few slides that people said were particularly useful. So you should see this one, the elements of formative assessment. So Lisa, do you want to just talk about this for a minute? And don't forget you have to press your microphone to talk, or you have to hit talk again when you come back to the main room.
Sure. So I was just sharing that what I did when I started this process this year was, in order to sort of have my students help hold me accountable for implementing these elements, I turned them into student-friendly language and shared them with my students. And so it's been really pretty awesome to just hear them, pare it back during class, when we're having them share with each other or help one another, because peers should help you learn, or little things like that. So I just have these posted in my room and I refer to them a lot, especially I've had some struggles with grading. I teach really high-level kids, and so they are used to getting a lot of grades and doing well, and so when they get just feedback, I have to sometimes remind them that, like, I'm trying to teach you to get to the next level, and you don't necessarily have it, and so we're at number 3, we're trying to get you to that learning target. So it's just been helpful for me to put them in student language, just both so the kids know what I'm doing, and also just to hold myself accountable to get the implementation in there every day.
Great, thanks. So I think this was the one, thought this would be great for Carly and Jill to just share a little bit about from one of their many acquisitions from ASCD. And just remember, Carly and Jill, you have to hit the microphone thing again, the talk button again.
Okay, so
yeah.
we actually purchased a book called Advancing Formative Assessment in Every Classroom by Connie Moss and Susan Brookhart. And in this book, chapter 2, there was a really great chart that shared strategies for sharing the learning targets and criteria for success with your students. So it talks about different ways that you can do that, such as questioning, planning and envisioning, using examples, and using rubrics. Our teachers have really clung on to using, exemplars as a way to share success criteria with their students. So this was really helpful, this particular chart.
Great, thank you. And then Marshall, I think this is the one.
Close enough. Following up on Carly and Jill, and I know there's copyright laws involved, that was probably one of the things in our COP they were really challenging, is how we share that success criteria or develop success criteria to kids. That might be a really good thing to get out, because that's the hinge today on that, and we had a hard time figuring that one out. So if that's shareable without breaking copyright laws, I'd love to get a copy of that.
Okay.
What I was looking at was, and again, we're looking at assessment literacy in this presentation, and it hit so many things in my head when I was there, but more so now when we're going through learning goals and learning progressions and success criteria and thinking of vocabulary. A lot of the teachers were looking at how we're building from ground up, what our expectations for kids would be, as well as how they'd be able to demonstrate it. And they were able to use Bloom's and other theorists and how they're developing the cognitive level from higher order thinking skills. So they're looking at these terms to see, are they applied within questioning as well as within the curriculum, as well as in how they're instructing. It was pretty eye-opening, but I know today it was very applicable as they were trying to build not only their success criteria, but also their learning progressions.
Great. Thank you, guys. Thank you for sharing. So we're going to go to just some individual highlights. I'm hoping Beverly's still with us. Beverly, if you're able to speak or call in, it would be great if you could share out the tag tool that you guys are doing. And any other resources that you have, I mean, like Marshall just showed us that great slide with some of the language that people find useful. Unfortunately, one of the facilitators who I'd asked to share something is not on right now, but Beverly, if you're able to share or just type in the chat box, that would be great. If anybody else has any tools or ideas or resources that they'd love to share, now would be a great time to do it. And so if you have a microphone, I think we can handle people just going ahead and talking.
I can share a couple of books that I picked up at the conference, one of which was really helpful, which is, I think it's just called Learning Targets, which is by Moss and Brookhart. And that just goes into a lot more depth about the learning targets and success criteria. So I dove into that one and found that one pretty helpful. And another one I picked up that was really good was called Assignments Matter by Eleanor Dougherty, Gougherty. And that one takes the tack that instead of using the word assessment, because I guess she thinks it conjures all kinds of ideas of tests, she focuses on assignments, but still all of the language and the approach in it is formative assessment. So I liked that one also just for thinking in terms of what's the performance of understanding that they're going to do at the end of the learning progression. So those are a couple that I picked up that I thought were really good.
Great. Thanks. And Beverly, so the tag strategy is something that they had recently introduced to, and Beverly's at an elementary school in one of our really early ed elementary schools where they do have pre-K through third. And they were introduced to this peer assessment strategy called TAG. So T, tell me what you like about my work. A, ask me a question of interest or concern about my work. And then G, give me some constructive suggestions on how I may improve my work. And so, tying that to the success criteria, it gives the kids a framework for what they're looking at. And I really liked that idea because, we say that modeling those peer conversations is really difficult, but it's really important. And so, things like this with handouts or with a really structured way of looking at how to give peer assessment, especially at the younger grades, is a useful tool. Westside, who is the author of Assignments? Who's that from? I think that was of which assignments, Westside, if you could be a little more specific. Assignments Matter, there we go, Eleanor Door. Thank you, Nancy. Is there anything else that people would like to share out before we move on to our last little discussion?
I don't have a book or a tool, but I think making this stuff relative on a more daily basis, for us at least here, is just daily conversations and saying, how's it going? What have you tried today? And it makes you think, well, have I tried something today? And we've had great conversations by trying to make it an active thing versus something that, okay, well, I got a lot of time to produce this, or I got to do my module assignment. But on a daily basis, how we trying to use formative assessment to benefit kids. And I think that personal level starts to change things, we were saying before, from being something mandated to something that's actually we believe in.
That's great. And another thing in that same vein that a couple of schools I'm working with have done is they've created office hours, similar to what you would have in college or what a lot of teachers have, where, every week this is the same office hour time, and teachers can drop in and chat and work on the module together and go over what they're doing and just sort of have a space to actually discuss this on a weekly basis because, like Marshall said, especially in high school, which is my background, you will literally never see one of your coworkers unless you make a concerted effort to actually see them. So having that opportunity to have office hours or weekly check-in. I know one of my schools is doing a weekly email blast just with some tips and to get sort of an idea of what's going on. And it is a great way just to encourage that collaboration and that sharing, even across the content. And Carly and Jill, you chimed in?
Yeah, we just wanted to share something that the teachers in our school are trying. We actually have a vertical team of teachers working on learning progressions for all of the ELA standards. So what they're doing is they're each taking their grade level for each standard and thinking about what would be meeting or like a level 3 within that standard. And then they're all coming back together and helping each other to create the learning progression for that particular standard by sharing what they've determined about their grade level. So for like a 3rd grade level 3, they would use what they've determined, but then they can use like the 2nd grade, like what 2nd grade has developed as their level 2, and then what 1st grade has developed as their level 1 within that particular standard. So our teachers are finding some success in working vertically as well.
That's great. We really encourage that. Beverly, I think Beverly's group is doing the same. We're now meeting 2 to 3 times per month in addition to the COP to have a question and answer session and support each other in the implementation, and it helps a lot. Yeah, that's great, and we really hope that the vertical alignment does happen more because especially between school levels, between the elementary and the middle and the high school, which is one of the reasons that we're really encouraging next year for the 2nd cohort, having schools that, when you're adding schools in your district, your school helps seek them out, thinking about, what school feeds into yours or who do you feed into, and how could you make sure that, this language continues on, or the students that you will get have this language before they come to you, because we say, we know that if they're getting this before they come to us, it makes our job a lot easier. So we're just going to move on to the February event, and you have received some information about it already, but we now have a more fleshed out picture of what we're going to be doing, and so that invitation will be sent out very soon. Marshall Vertical is good. We're looking to do this with language and assessments from middle to high school. We could incorporate this. And I think it would make it even stronger. Great idea. Thanks. I know it sounds weird that I'm reading the chat out loud, but the recording, they won't see the chat, so I'm trying to repeat it. So sorry for that weird piece. So the formative assessment road trip, the information should be up on the blog. If it's not already, I just need to confirm that. It is. It is there on the main blog, and I'm copying that link. And we're going to be sending out the invitation to you and your administrators participating in FAME. Our goal is to have all of our FAME administrators, all of our FAME facilitators, as well as 2 representatives from each district. And if there are certain people that you think should be attending that, please let me know. I will be sending out an invitation to them, I believe next Monday. I know a lot of offices are closed, but I want to make sure that those that aren't get that information soon. And so that day we have Coach Nancy will be there with us. We also have Margaret Heritage coming to deliver a keynote. There'll be a panel discussion of the path to implementation, and we will have a FAME facilitator, a FAME administrator, and a district leader participating in that panel. And it will be a great opportunity for you to have questions and participate. Then we're going to talk about aligning current initiatives to formative assessment practices, and there will be a celebration for your successes and planning for future roadblocks. Wow, it's the end of a long week. So if there are certain topics that you think should be covered, and we've taken notes on some of the things that you've already discussed, such as special education, please, right now is your chance to share that out. So if you want to go ahead and talk and discuss that or type some of those things in the chat box, please do so now.
This is Coach Nancy. I want to be a little bit more specific. We have roundtables set up in the afternoon where we would like to have the kind of sharing that you've done today, and we'd like to have people walk away with something like what Marshall said, saying we could do that, and that would be easy for us to implement. Great idea. We'll take it. So the roundtables are very short sharing sessions in small groups, and we need about 20 of them given the size of our group so that the roundtables can work properly. And so we're hoping that you can help us come up with a bunch of topics that you think would be helpful for a short kind of check-in that you'd like to hear about or learn more about.
Okay, thank you, Kim. I'll write that down. If you have a microphone or you've called in, go ahead and share out now. You don't need to raise your hand or anything.
Hi, it's Lisa. I'm interested in talking or hearing about how different people have approached grading. Just that's been an area of concern for me, so I'd like to hear about that.
Great.
All right, am I on?
Yes, you are.
I like the tag idea. I mean, immediately I'm going, okay, I do something, I won't say similar to something close. If I can walk away with that real fast, I know how I'm going to use that. Anything that we can create that's that simple that someone can go, like we said, I can do that, would be awesome. One thing I know within our group is time. So in terms of implementation with time, planning for time, activities, grading, another good example, but something that someone can look at and say, all right, that does not require me to do too much more. I hate to say it that way, but I think that's when you see the reluctant teachers, that's one of the biggest pitfalls is I don't have the time to plan this stuff out, implement it, grade it, do all this. Anything at all that deals with those issues that they can go, got it, and walk away with would be really, really good. I don't know what, but I think it would be good.
Yeah, that's exactly the design that we're hoping for, that it's a quick takeaway and a quick conversation. So it might be something very concrete like the tag example. I could imagine that table being like 4 different ways to structure peer assessment, and you could walk away with those 4 structures. Or it might be something that's more like how to do something. So might look at Carly and Jill's example of vertical teaming and say, what did you do to create that? What templates are you using? What did someone come up with? And what questions did your teachers ask to get you started? And that would be a 10, 15-minute conversation about that Carly and Jill could lead. As an example, all of you have said things today that would be perfect for this, so hold that on to the which topics.
Well, and I wonder, to piggyback on this conversation, I wonder if it might be helpful to ask people to bring artifacts or documents that we can share. We can absolutely do that electronically, but sometimes it's nice to have a visual, here's what I did and here's how it worked kind of thing. I don't know if this is the format for that, but having a face-to-face opportunity to collaborate is a really valuable opportunity to just learn from others who are actually putting this into practice.
Yes, this will be the time to share artifacts at this session. And there will be artifacts that you'll pick up in the roundtables, but then there'll also be samples that you might not get to that roundtable, but others on your team will have gone and collected those.
And I'm hoping to have some of those materials from the course before then that people have submitted, from their COP, all of those things that you guys are collecting. I will be putting out a call for some of those materials that maybe they haven't been shared with us yet, but but we want them to be shared. So that will be something that I'll be putting out a call for soon, and we can make copies of those. And our goal is to have all of that. Yeah.
I know that because I'm racking my brain thinking, but I guess the best thing I'm thinking of is we only have about 1/10 of our faculty on FAME that means 90% not. And I've got some wonderful teachers in my department that probably do some things like this that I could kind of ask questions of to see if they can provide it as well and see how we would fit it into things, kind of looking at it backwards a little bit. So I know that's the direction I can go and ask for.
That would be great.
Yeah, we're hoping to have a really robust collection of resources by the end of the course that will be in our curriculum resources, easily searchable, easily shared. And this would be a great place to start that work and that conversation. Anything else that people can think of? Anything that people type in the chat or say I'm writing down frantically? Okay, ELL, language immersion. Yep, okay, we're seeing. Right, I'm seeing a trend, which is very helpful. Okay, so I guess before we go, I just want to ask, are there any questions that people have before we go and before we wrap this up?
I'm completely shocked that I made it through this whole hour and a half of technology that I've never done before in my life. I'm absolutely surprised that I'm still here and you can hear me.
We're proud of you, Marshall. Okay, so if there's nothing else, we can go ahead and sign off. Just so you know, all of the resources for today and from today are now up on the blog under the Facilitator section. Oh, Beverly, you're welcome for taking a look at 3 through 5. We have gone, they've gone up on the blog, and we'll put them on Blackboard as well. I hope to do that tomorrow in the Facilitator section. This recording should be available on YouTube very soon. Probably not tomorrow unless our person who does that for us, you know, just hammers it out tomorrow before she probably leaves. So we will have that to you soon. And thank you guys for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.